Welcome to the Rights of a Human Timeline. This is just a broad overview of some interesting aspects of law, and it's about your jurisdiction, about who really is in control of who, what your actual rights are as it pertains to this jurisdiction, what the true nature of your government's jurisdiction really is, and some just interesting concepts that you may want to look into on your own. It's by no means all right here, nor do I completely understand all of it. But what I can do is at least open a dialogue so that others could possibly have a starting point to jump off and maybe even empower themselves in the process. This is about your ability to be sovereign, to be free, to regain your birthright. You're born a natural person of the world, subject to nobody but nature's law. And at some point, we unknowingly sign those rights away. And that's what this is about. In the beginning, you have rights at birth. When you were birthed into this world by your mother, you weren't born with a stamp on your forehead saying you belong to, commerce abroad. You're not born into the system saying with a constitution stamped on your ass. You're only born into this world subject to nature and all those things around you. So long as you respect nature, you respect living things, nothing can hold you accountable. We just happen to sign this away some point. According to the law, you're a free man. You're a sovereign. You're free of any contract, any obligation, any any wavering of rights. You can't be born a slave, essentially, because it's all completely against your natural rights. Basic human rights. So much is talked about these. I mean, these are, right to shelter, right to live not in fear, you know, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The very general set that all natural things are allowed to have, that are just because you're only subject to your creator at that point. Well, what happens is we misconstrue our government as our creator, and so we basically give them the rights of our creator, which is to judge us, and that's not the way it should be. Period. They're not. These are self-evident and universal. They're not contingent upon the laws, customs, or beliefs of any particular culture or government. They cannot be surrendered, sold, or transferred to someone else. So we've obviously been duped into doing this, or to thinking that we've done this, and we just don't know how to go about remedying the mistake we've made. And that's kind of what this whole project is. It's, I start digging, it gets you interested, you start digging, which gets somebody else start interested, and then before we know it, between the 100,000 of us that have started digging for the real answers and how we go about remedying the situation to regain our inalienable rights, only then will we actually be able to do it, because we'll all do it together, and you can't stop that idea. And it's only a matter of time. I mean, do you think it's fair that, were you told whenever you signed the birth certificate of your child, or whenever you were born, were your parents told that this signs you up and makes you the jurisdiction of the government, and you have no choice? You weren't given an option. You weren't told that it was a contract, that it was a contractual agreement when you signed that, whenever you registered. And that's the fraud. That's why we're tackling all this, is that it's up to you to know the deception. Just like in a court of law, you have to prove yourself innocent. It doesn't matter whether you are or not. Just like if you're guilty, that guy doesn't have an obligation to say that he's guilty, even though that would be the natural thing to do. But under our corporate guidelines, it's all about making that money, and it's all about burden of proof. So we ask ourselves, if we're not really under the jurisdiction of them, why do we think we're under the jurisdiction of commerce, under the jurisdiction of a corporation, under the jurisdiction of a government. Well, that's because they do what's called they give you what's called legal rights, and these are just every right that are beyond the natural rights. They're just deviations of those or misconstruements, or really they're better thought of as restrictions, because really you already have your original set of natural inherited rights, and these are just a list of restrictions upon them. You're taking away from what's already there. You're never adding to it. So, I mean, when you look around you, you look at all the statutes, you look at all the laws, all the acts, all the different things that come to pass, all the different things they pass into legislation. None of them really even exist. These are just adding more restrictions onto the agreement that they've already made with you to take away your natural rights and then act in your best interest. Well, they're obviously not acting in your best interest, because I don't think that anybody would raise their hand and say, yeah, let's go bomb the shit out of the rest of the world and let's take them all. Well, because we're under legal rights and we have legal rights created in our name, we have to ask the question, how do we separate the two? How can we, what does that mean that we have a legal us, a legal identity, a legal entity created in our name, as opposed to who we are as a natural person when we're born, before we even sign anything and we become a part of anything?